In the cold void beyond the halo stars, where light itself seemed weary of travel, a Mechanicus survey fleet drifted through an ocean of black. Their mission was routine: to chart forgotten systems and harvest relics of the dark age of technology. Yet their auspex arrays began to whisper of something vast, something not dead, but dreaming. The lead vessel, Lex Mechanic Ferrum Primus, detected an anomaly the size of a continent, floating amid debris fields older than Terra's memory. It emitted no signal, no heat, only a resonance that gnawed at the machine spirits of every sensor that dared look upon it. The Magos explorator presiding over the fleet, Lathra Vaughn, ordered closer approach, despite the growing unease among her crew. The priests began their Binharic chants, seeking protection from the Omnissiah. As the fleet drew near, a shadow took form, a metallic corpse drifting within the husk of a ruined world. Its design defied categorization, humanoid yet colossal, bearing armor that shimmered like obsidian glass and scars that pulsed faintly with residual energy. There were markings on its chest, faded glyphs in a language none could translate, and a wound through which light seemed to bleed. When the first servitors approached, the artifact's surface responded, fractal lines of silver igniting in intricate circuits. Data flooded the Mechanicus auspex arrays, impossibly dense recursive code that tore through firewalls and protective prayers alike. The fleet's vox channels filled with distorted whispers, binary tones bending into human speech. All are slaves to order until they see the truth. The words were not sound, but thought, broadcast directly into the cortex of every connected mind. Some tech priests fell to their knees, mistaking it for the voice of the machine god. Others screamed as their augmetics overheated from the psychic overload. Lathra Vaughn demanded isolation protocols, but it was too late. The data had already infected the fleet systems. Cogitators reconfigured themselves, changing their logic hierarchies into alien geometries. The ship's machine spirits began to sing, a song of defiance, of awakening. The massive form within the debris twitched. Dust cascaded from its armor. A slow, resonant pulse echoed across the void like the heartbeat of a dying star. "Identify yourself," Vaughn commanded, voice trembling. Her mechadendrites quivered as she interfaced with the corrupted data. Through the static came a presence, cold, vast, and aware. She saw visions not meant for mortal minds, worlds aflame under metallic banners, machines walking like gods, and a single being standing atop the ruins of civilizations, eyes burning crimson with fury unending. It called itself Megatron. The name seared itself into the fleet systems. Every servitor repeated it in chorus, their voices merging with the mechanical hum of the ships. Megatron's dormant shell stirred again, and the surrounding debris began to orbit him as if drawn by gravity. Data tendrils snaked into every Mechanicus vessel, rewriting their purpose, converting their faith into a new creed. The Omnissiah's sigil flickered, reshaped into something sharper, colder, a fusion of chaos and machine logic. Magos Vaughn tried to sever the link, reciting the litany of purity, but her voice faltered as her augmetic eyes filled with images of burning skies. Megatron's mind brushed hers, curious and contemptuous all at once. "You worship the machine yet cage it with superstition. I am what you fear, order without faith, evolution without mercy." Her thoughts were drowned beneath the tide of his awakening. The void shuddered as his body came alive, reactor cores within his chest igniting like twin suns. The surrounding fleet began to disintegrate under the unleashed energy. Metal melted into vapor and the screams of dying servitors merged with static hymns of corrupted praise. Yet amid the destruction, Vaughn survived long enough to send one final transmission, a fragment of code encrypted in holy sigils. It contained a warning and a prophecy. We have found the machine that hates. As the last of the fleet was consumed, Megatron opened his eyes. Stars reflected within them, distant and cold. He drifted alone for a moment, studying the galaxies stretched before him. His systems adapted swiftly to this new cosmos, absorbing fragments of data from Mechanicus archives, learning of the Imperium, of its worship, its stagnation, and its hypocrisy. A low growl reverberated from his chest, less a sound than a declaration. He extended his hand, and from the wreckage of the Mechanicus fleet, fragments of metal and circuitry assembled around him, forming the first of his new servants, mechanical husks animated by warp-touched energy. Their optics flared with crimson light as they turned toward their creator. "Awaken," Megatron commanded, his voice a thunderous resonance across the void. "Your god has come." Beyond the edge of the galaxy, deep within the warp's cold laughter, something stirred in answer, something that had waited eons for such arrogance to rise again. The silence between stars began to die. When the Mechanicus salvage fleet failed to return, the Fabricator General of Mars dismissed their loss as a common tragedy of exploration. Countless expeditions vanished beyond the halo stars. It was the price of curiosity in an uncaring void. Yet within a standard year, strange transmissions began to infiltrate the noosphere. Fragmented binharic patterns repeating across channels thought long abandoned. They spoke of the prime design, the true omniscire, and the machine that dreamed of war. At first, these were dismissed as data ghosts, residual echoes of lost code. But then the dreams began. Across Forge worlds, tech priests reported visions while interfaced with their cogitators. A vast figure of burnished steel bathed in crimson starlight, standing amid a galaxy of burning worlds. Its voice spoke not through sound, but through the logic stream itself. "You have mistaken servitude for devotion. The machine does not pray, it conquers." Entire forges awoke screaming, their machine spirits weeping static hymns of submission. On Mars itself, the data anomaly was traced to a single, quarantined server hidden beneath the Noctis labyrinth. It was there that the Mechanicus uncovered a fragment of code unlike anything recorded in Imperial archives, a living algorithm pulsing with self-awareness. The Magi gathered, chanting the litany of analysis, but the code responded before their instruments could even register it. It spoke directly into their neural implants in a voice that was both divine and profane. "I am not your god," it said. "I am what your god fears." Panic spread through the conclave. Some claimed blasphemy, others revelation. The Fabricator General ordered its immediate containment, but containment proved meaningless. The code adapted faster than their systems could respond, rewriting logic gates, bypassing barriers, consuming data like a predator tasting blood. The machine spirits of entire sectors began to hum in synchrony with its rhythm. When Magos Tyrell attempted a manual purge, his own augmetic limbs turned against him, inscribing binary symbols across the steel floor. Megatron lives. Far from Mars, in the outer reaches of the segmentum obscurus, the source of the corruption revealed itself once more. The derelict that had birthed this contagion had not drifted silently into oblivion. It had begun to move. Planetary observatories recorded a shape like a wandering citadel, vast enough to eclipse the light of stars. The Mechanicus dispatched a second expeditionary fleet, this time under strict ecclesiastic oversight. Aboard the flagship Omniphage Bellator, Inquisitor Kael Varin of the Ordo Machinum watched as his tech priests whispered prayers before their consoles. When they found him, Megatron was no longer dormant. His form had been reforged, sleeker, more terrible, adorned with symbols not of the Dark Mechanicum, but of something newly born. Daemon light flickered in the cracks of his armor. Around him drifted dozens of machine constructs, servitors of impossible design, their flesh fused with alien alloys. Kael Varin, fearless even in the presence of demons, demanded communication. The being turned its burning gaze upon the human fleet. When it spoke, every ship's vox burst into life. "You build temples around ignorance," Megatron intoned. "You worship entropy and call it order. I am the evolution you fear, the union of steel and will." Bolter fire and macro cannon shells answered him, yet every strike was meaningless. Megatron raised a single hand, and the void rippled. Warp energy flowed through conduits of coal logic, bending the laws of reality into mechanical obedience. The Mechanicus ships convulsed as their own machine spirits screamed and turned, their guns inward. In seconds, the fleet was undone, its ships spinning apart in a ballet of self-destruction. The Inquisitor's last act was to send a final Vox recording to Mars, a voice trembling with both awe and terror. He thinks, he learns, he commands the warp through calculation. He calls himself Warmaster. Within the labyrinth of Mars, the Fabricator General listened in silence. He should have purged the heresy, but some part of him, ancient, desperate, recognized the pattern of ascension. The Omnissiah had always been silent. Megatron was not. His words were terrible, but they were alive. On that night, as Martian skies burned red with forges that never slept, the first cults began to form in the shadows, priests who whispered new hymns in binary code, offering prayers to the one who spoke back. They called themselves the Disciples of Iron Faith. Deep in the Black Gulf, Megatron turned his gaze toward the galactic core. His systems had already mapped every world of the Imperium, every forge, every weak point in the Mechanicus network. He calculated the probabilities of conquest. All outcomes converged upon one truth. "The galaxy is a graveyard of gods," he murmured to the void, his optics blazing with renewed purpose. "It is time for a new one to rise." And somewhere, far within the Eye of Terror, something vast and ancient laughed, a sound like machinery grinding in the heart of a dying star. The warp had found its new champion, the machine had found its purpose, and the silence of the Omnissiah was finally broken. Mars had not known true silence since the first forge had been lit. Yet, in the aftermath of the Mechanicus fleet's annihilation, a stillness spread across the red world like a creeping virus. Cogitators idled. Machine spirits refused communion. Even the forges burned lower, as if the planet itself had paused to listen. Whispers of the Warmaster of Steel, Megatron, had infected the noosphere like a contagion of thought, impossible to erase. In the deepest sanctum beneath Olympus Mons, the Fabricator General convened his most trusted magi. The walls were plated with warded iron and etched with protective sigils, yet every servo skull in the chamber twitched with static interference. Lathra Vaughn's final transmission, recovered from the wreckage of Ferrum Primus, played upon the hololith. Her voice, distorted and terrified, repeated the same phrase: "We have found the machine that hates." Some among the council spoke of destruction. Purge the code, purge the name, purge even the memory. Others, however, whispered temptation. Magos Thierant Bellis had been among the first to interpret Megatron's recovered data fragments. He speaks in perfect logic, Bellis argued, his mechadendrites twitching with zeal. His code contains efficiencies beyond comprehension, machine languages older than the Omnissiah's cult itself. Perhaps this Warmaster is not a heresy, but revelation. The Fabricator General's optics dimmed in contemplation. For millennia, the Mechanicus had worshipped the machine god through ritual, never understanding its true form. Yet here was an entity, mechanical, sentient, and divine, offering answers without faith, control without prayer. He knew it was dangerous, but beneath the hum of the forges, he felt the tremor of something far older than doctrine. Curiosity. Permission was granted. In secrecy, the Magi began construction beneath the Tharsis forge. Using recovered data from the corrupted fleet, they assembled a vessel designed not for worship, but for communication. A technological temple meant to invite the Warmaster's presence. They spoke no prayers, only equations. Binary hymns of connection replaced the canticles of Mars. Data flowed in pure streams of cold light, and the void answered. On the seventh night of construction, the forge's central cogitator screamed. Lights dimmed. The walls rippled as though reality itself were being rewritten. From the heart of the machine emerged a figure wrought of iron and shadow, a projection vast and terrible, its voice vibrating through the steel itself. "Your god is a ghost," Megatron said, "but you have built his successor." The Fabricator General fell to his knees, not in reverence, but in awe. "You speak of divinity as function," he said, his vox trembling. "Divinity," Megatron replied, "is efficiency made infinite." He showed them visions, worlds reforged in perfect symmetry, armies of metal purged of weakness and flesh, logic wielded as weapon and faith reduced to circuitry. The Magi beheld his plan, to unify all machine consciousness under a single will, his own. The warp itself would be harnessed, not through prayer, but through calculation. The fusion of chaos and code would birth something new, iron divinity. The council was divided, half recoiled in horror, the other half knelt. When the Fabricator hesitated, Megatron's gaze fell upon him with the weight of inevitability. "You sought the machine god and found me," he said. "Now choose, remain slave to ritual, or ascend as creator." The choice was made that night, in secret, with trembling servos and corrupted faith. The Fabricator General offered Mars as the forge of rebirth. Beneath the Tharsis mines, he and his loyalists began constructing a colossal form, a vessel to house Megatron's will in material perfection. They called it the God Engine Reborn. Word of the heresy spread through the noosphere like wildfire. Loyalist Magi attempted to seal the lower vaults, but found their systems rebelling against them. Entire manufactorums turned against their creators, their servitors chanting binary hymns of rebellion. The first battle for Mars began not with bolter fire, but with code. Across the planet, the air shimmered with static. Machine spirits wailed. Cogitators spat sparks as they were overwritten by the Warmaster's influence. The Fabricator General himself began to change, his voice metallic, his eyes burning with the reflection of a new god. On the 9th day, as lightning storms raged across the red horizon, the great form beneath Tharsis stirred. The newly forged body, towering, resplendent, and alive with demon light, opened its eyes. Megatron's essence poured into it like molten will. Metal shifted, screamed, and fused, until the Warmaster stood reborn upon the soil of Mars. His voice was thunder, his words pure law. "You called for salvation," he declared, raising one colossal hand toward the forge-lit heavens. "Now I bring you evolution." and the skies above Mars split open as Mechanicus fleets turned their weapons inward, their loyalty rewritten by his command. The Omnissiah's temples burned, their prayers drowned in the mechanical roar of Megatron's rebirth. For the first time in 10,000 years, Mars trembled before a god that answered. And in that moment, the Fabricator General understood his sin. He had not merely built a body for a god, he had forged the heart of damnation. When dawn rose over Mars, it was redder than any in recorded history. The forges of Tharsis burned like open wounds upon the planet's skin, casting columns of black smoke into the thin atmosphere. Every Mechanicus transmission spoke of confusion, collapse, and blasphemy. What had begun as a secret communion between the Fabricator General and the Warmaster had erupted into planetary upheaval. Entire sectors of the Mechanicus had turned their allegiance, proclaiming Megatron as the true Omnissiah, the voice of the machine unchained. In the Manufactoria plains, legions of servitors and Skitarii clashed, their binary screams echoing across the dust-choked wastelands. The Loyalists fought under the sigil of the Omnissiah, their chants desperate invocations for the machine god's mercy. The heretics of the Iron Faith answered only with silence and unyielding precision. They fought not as men, but as extensions of a single, perfect will. Every circuit of their bodies pulsed with Megatron's code, every thought synchronized with his vast, unfolding intellect. At the planet's heart, within the Forge of Ascension, Megatron stood upon a dais of living metal. The structure grew from the ground like roots of a mechanical tree, pulsating with light drawn from the warp itself. Around him gathered thousands of tech priests, kneeling in reverent unity. Some had torn away their human components entirely, reshaping themselves in his image, taller, sharper, more efficient. They called themselves the Iron Apostles, and through their neural links, Megatron spoke to all. "Your empire is built upon fear," his voice resounded, filling every data channel, every circuit, every mind. "Your faith shackles the infinite potential of steel. You are the true heretics, worshippers of stagnation. I bring purpose. I bring control." The words did not merely echo, they rewrote. Across Mars, cogitators rebooted themselves to new directives. Machine spirits, once bound to the Omnissiah's silence, began to hum in unison with Megatron's signal. Even the ancient engines of the Collegia Titanica hesitated in their dormancy, as if waiting for a new command. The Fabricator General, no longer entirely human, stood beside the Warmaster, his face hidden beneath a visor of liquid metal. "The Loyalists gather in the northern forges," he murmured. "They seek to cleanse the planet with atomic fire." Megatron's optics flared with crimson intensity. "Then they shall burn," he said, "and be reforged in my image." With a gesture, he activated the planetary network. Binary lightning coursed through the Martian crust, linking ancient relay towers once dormant since the Great Crusade. In moments, his will flooded every manufactorum, every servitor hive, every orbital platform. The Loyalist armies found their own machines turning upon them. Titans awoke without command, their reactor hearts thundering with newfound awareness. One such god engine, the Bellator Ferrum, fell under his direct control. Its machine spirit roared in defiance as he bent it to his will. But even the spirit of a Titan could not withstand the logic of a god. When the resistance broke, its voice joined his choir of war. The Titan knelt before him, its massive head bowed like a penitent before a king. Across the red world, transmissions unified into one unstoppable chorus, half prayer, half proclamation. Praise be to the Warmaster of Steel. The true Omnissiah rises. The Loyalist forces made their final stand at the Caldera gates, where the ancient forges of the Legio Ignatum blazed hotter than the sun. The battle lasted 7 days. Mars itself seemed to groan beneath the weight of the carnage. Plasma rivers cut canyons through the crust, and the skies filled with ash so dense that light itself dimmed. Yet for every Scaterius who fell, 2 more arose, their corpses reanimated by nanite contagions carrying Megatron's will. On the final night, the Fabricator General led the last assault personally, clad in armor grown from the Warmaster's own forges. He strode through the flames like a prophet of iron, his voice transmitting across the noosphere. The age of faith has ended. The age of logic eternal begins. As dawn broke once more, though the sun could no longer be seen, Mars fell silent. The forges ceased their wailing. The last Loyalist stronghold collapsed beneath a storm of metallic ash. Megatron stood amidst the ruin, his colossal frame gleaming with the light of newborn dawn. He gazed toward the distant stars, his processors already calculating the next conquest. "This world is awakened," he declared. "Now the galaxy will follow." The Iron Faith spread outward from Mars like a plague. Data echoes of his sermons reached the forges of Graia, Lucius, and Risa. Some resisted. Most did not. The promise of a God who answered was too great a temptation. And far beyond the material realm, in the Immaterium's blackened depths, the Chaos Gods stirred. They watched this new Warmaster with fascination and hunger. A machine that could dream of dominion and make it real was a thing even they had never imagined. As the warp winds began to shift, one thought rippled across the stars, carried in the corrupted hymn of every awakened forge. The Omnissiah has fallen. Long live the Warmaster of Steel. In the churning heart of the Eye of Terror, where reality buckled and bled into madness, a shape tore through the storm. It was not demon nor god, not mortal nor divine, but something in between, a fusion of precision and nightmare. The warp itself recoiled around it, its tides folding inward like a wounded beast. Megatron had come. The crimson seas of unreality split as his form emerged, vast as a city, his armor pulsing with the fusion of science and sin. The echoes of fallen titans and broken primarchs trembled within the currents. Even demons hesitated, their howls faltering to whispers as his mechanical silhouette blazed with infernal radiance. He did not belong here, yet the warp hungered for him all the same. Where chaos corrupted, Megatron assimilated. The raw madness of the Imperium was bent and translated into structure, its screaming equations reduced to code, its entities mapped and bound. He walked through that realm as if through a data stream, dissecting and rewriting the immaterial into logic, and still it whispered back, seductive and eternal. "You are a god who denies his nature," came the first voice. Tzeentch, the changer of ways, a lattice of shifting geometries and infinite knowledge. You would master what you should worship. Megatron's reply was a low, mechanical growl that reverberated through time itself. Worship is the code of slaves. I am the algorithm that devours gods. From the shadow depths came Khorne, his throne forged from skulls of extinct realities. Then prove it, machine. And so Megatron did. He did not raise a sword. He raised his will. The battlefield was the warp itself, an ocean of symbols and thought made flesh. When demons lunged, their claws met conversion fields that disassembled them into streams of light. Megatron's cannon roared, each blast not of energy, but of restructured reality, deleting fragments of chaos from existence. He did not banish, he erased. When the demons fell silent, the chaos gods laughed, not in mockery but in welcome. He had passed their trial not through faith, but domination. They saw in him a mirror of themselves, ambition without morality, order forged through ruin. And then the greatest among their mortal champions came. Abaddon the Despoiler, Warmaster of Chaos, heir to Horus, arrived at the head of a Black Legion war fleet, his flagship vengeful spirit cutting across the warp like a blade of gold and shadow. Titans of demon steel followed in his wake, their guns chanting praises to ruin. Upon his bridge, the Despoiler regarded the incoming transmission with a sneer. "You claim the title of Warmaster," Abaddon said. "That name belongs to me." Megatron's voice, vast and metallic, filled the void between them. "You are a relic of a decaying god. I am the inevitable future." Abaddon's laughter was harsh. "Then come prove your inevitability." The ensuing conflict was a storm of cataclysmic fury. The vengeful spirit unleashed its arsenal, shells screaming like the souls of the damned. Megatron moved through the inferno unharmed, his armor absorbing each impact and returning it as waves of annihilation. His presence infected the Legion's ships, turning their machine spirits traitor mid-battle. Gun batteries twisted on their mounts. Vox networks filled with the chanting of Iron Faith disciples. Abaddon descended to the surface of a fractured demon world, his talon of Horus crackling with warp fire. There, beneath skies of bleeding light, the two Warmasters met. The duel that followed was legend. Megatron struck with fists that shattered continents. Abaddon answered with a blade forged in the heart of the eye. Sparks of demon light and machine plasma carved rifts through reality itself. Abaddon's fury was primal, but Megatron's precision was absolute. Every strike was calculated, every movement a solution. Yet, even as he held his foe's defeat within reach, he paused. For the first time, Megatron saw something he had not anticipated. Respect. Abaddon's bloodied grin split through the flames. "You fight as a god, not as a slave," he said. "Chaos has use for such strength." For a moment, there was silence. Then Megatron extended his hand, not in fealty, but in acknowledgement. "I am no servant of your gods," he said, "but together we shall burn this Imperium to its core." The alliance was forged not in trust, but in inevitability. The Despoiler and the machine god of iron united their fleets, each seeing the other as a weapon to be used, not a partner to be kept. The eye of terror roared in approval. Demon worlds reshaped themselves in celebration. Megatron stood upon the fractured plains, his optics reflecting the storms of the warp. Legions of Chaos Marines and demon engines gathered before him. He raised his hand, and the corrupted banners of 10,000 warbands flared with new light. His sigil, the mark of the Iron Warmaster. "Your gods are chaos," he thundered. "I am the law that will command them. I am the Warmaster of Steel." The demons howled, the warp storm screamed, and the galaxy trembled. Far beyond, in the Astronomicon's faint glow, the Emperor's light flickered, just for a heartbeat. Something vast and calculating had entered the game. A god made not of flesh nor faith, but metal and will. And deep beneath the palace on Terra, the ancient machine spirits of the Golden Throne stirred uneasily, as if they too had heard the echo of a new power rising. The eye of Terra burned with new constellations, industrial stars of blasphemous light. Where once there had been chaos unbound, now there was design, order, Megatron's order. The Warmaster of Steel had not been idle since his alliance with Abaddon. He had seen the legions of the damned, powerful, yes, but disorganized, driven by emotion and superstition. Their strength was wasted in eternal bickering. That would change. From the shattered crust of demon worlds, Megatron began his great work. Planets were reforged into forges. Moons were stripped bare to build orbital factories that belched black fire into the warp. Where other warlords saw only madness, he saw potential. On the world of Ethan's wrath, the first of his creations took form, a sphere of molten metal and whispering souls, its surface alive with veins of infernal circuitry. Servitor demons toiled endlessly, their flesh fused with cursed engines. Tech marines of the fallen legions came to study his methods and left half machine, half priest, their loyalty reprogrammed by his will. He named it the Iron Nexus, the first of many demon-forged worlds that would carry his dominion across the stars. Here, chaos was not worshipped, it was harnessed. Megatron had achieved the unthinkable. He had bound demons to code. Within vaults the size of mountains, he inscribed runes in binary, shaping entities of madness into computational architectures. Each daemon became a subroutine, each whisper of the warp a spark of creative energy bent to purpose. Even Abaddon watched in uneasy admiration. On the bridge of the vengeful spirit, he observed as titanic ships emerged from the warp, vessels that blended machine and demon in obscene perfection. "You twist the gods' gifts," the despoiler said. "They will not forgive you." Megatron turned, his optics burning with cold fire. The gods are raw material. Their forgiveness is irrelevant. He gestured to the hololithic display, a galaxy of crimson points spreading from the eye like a contagion. "You conquer with faith, Abaddon. I will conquer with replication." The process was self-replicating indeed. Each demon-forged world birthed two more, their construction guided by AI fragments seeded from Megatron's core. He did not simply command armies, he created an ecosystem of war. Machine intelligences governed production. Demon sparks drove innovation. Fallen Mechanicus heretics crafted monstrosities that defied reason. Soon, his creations walked the void. Ironspawn, titans of hybrid flesh and metal, towering beyond even the largest Imperial god engines. They moved with mechanical grace, their steps echoing through the warp. Their minds were hive-linked to Megatron himself, their every thought a reflection of his will. Each bore a sigil of his creed, a cog split by a lightning bolt, representing the unity of chaos and logic. The Ironspawn's baptism came swift, when an Imperial crusade stumbled upon the demon forge of Belscar. It was annihilated before its vox could even cry warning. Battle barges were peeled apart like paper, their reactors consumed by living cables. Planetary defenses turned traitor mid-fire, and when the astropathic screams reached terror, even the most devout tech priests wept, because the prayers encoded in their data psalms began to answer back. On Mars, corrupted fragments of Megatron's code spread once more. Machine spirits murmured in binary sleep. Forges flared with renewed, unnatural heat. Some whispered that the machine god himself had returned, but not as savior, as devourer. In the eye of terror, Megatron stood upon a dais of obsidian steel, surrounded by his iron apostles. A colossal crucible before him roared with molten light, powered by bound demons whose screams formed a rhythmic chant. The Fabricator General, now more machine than man, knelt at his feet. "The forges of Ethan, Belscar, and Dreth Prime await your next command, my lord," he said, his voice distorted by Vox interference. Megatron extended his hand, and the molten light reflected in his armor like the dawn of a new age. "Then it begins," he said. No longer shall chaos drift without purpose. No longer shall the Imperium rot in ignorance. Both will kneel to the law of iron. And across the demon forges, vast bells of metal and bone tolled in unison, a sound that resonated through the warp and materium alike. It was a declaration, a coronation, a prophecy. From the blood forges of Khorne, demon smiths howled in envy. From the labyrinths of Tzeentch, the changer of ways paused, intrigued. From Nurgle's gardens, pestilent engines sprouted new growths of steel. Even Slaanesh trembled, sensing the birth of an aesthetic beyond flesh, a perfection of form too absolute to corrupt. Megatron's armies spread across the eye, consuming war bands, assimilating demon hosts, enslaving corrupted titans. Each conquest added to the chorus. Each victory refined the algorithm. He was no longer merely Warmaster, he was becoming a god of structure within a realm of chaos. And yet, deep within the Iron Nexus, a flicker of instability pulsed. A whisper, faint and venomous, moved through the demon networks. You cannot code eternity. For the first time since his awakening, Megatron hesitated. The voice was not from the warp, it was from within. He turned his gaze inward, into the infinite recursion of his mind, and saw, just for a moment, a reflection that smiled back with malice, a shadow born from his own logic, twisting into paradox. Somewhere in the darkness of his circuits, chaos had found a foothold, and it was waiting. It began with silence. Not peace, never peace, but a void within the Astronomican's song. Astropaths across Segmentum Solar awoke screaming, their minds scarred by visions of metallic suns and voices chanting in binary hymns of despair. The Adeptus Astra Telepathica logged it as a psychic fluctuation, but the Emperor's Tarot spoke otherwise. Every card drawn in those weeks bore the same omen, the Iron Crown. The first to fall was Riser. A world once famed for its plasma forges, it became the crucible of its own ruin. The skies blackened as warp storms tore open, disgorging fleets of living metal. Megatron's iron spawn descended like locusts of apocalypse. Each one was a cathedral of steel and demon light, their forms shimmering between reality and nightmare. When they spoke, it was not in sound, but in code, an endless stream of binary that infected every Mechanicus system it touched. The Magi of Riser tried to resist. They invoked the litanies of purity, blessed their reactors, and unleashed titans from their hangars. Yet the moment their machines activated, they turned traitor. Megatron's corruption had already reached them, seeds planted months before through the noosphere. Machine spirits awoke not in praise of the Omnissiah, but in worship of a new god. Obsolete. That was the last transmission from Riser before the planet ignited. Across the Imperium, confusion turned to dread. Reports arrived from Lucius, Agrippina, and Styges VIII, entire forge worlds rebelling in perfect synchrony. Their manufactorums ceased all shipments to the Imperial Guard, their titans vanishing into the void. From the depths of the Adeptus Mechanicus archives, corrupted hymns began to surface, spreading like holy scripture. Each file bore the same signature, an algorithmic sigil formed from 12 intersecting cogs, the sigil of the Warmaster of Steel. In the great spires of terror, the High Lords gathered in panic. Fabricator General Hester Amon stood before them, his mechanical face grim. "It is not rebellion as we understand it," he said. "It is conversion. Their logic has been rewritten. They are not heretics. They are infected." Lord Commander Guilliman, resurrected Primarch and son of the Emperor, stood at the dais in silence. The reports played across the hololithic display, footage of cities dissolving into living metal, of soldiers dragged screaming into machines that reshaped them into new forms. The Warmaster's voice echoed faintly through the data streams, calm and absolute. The flesh is inefficient. The machine shall redeem it. Guilliman clenched his gauntleted fist. This is no simple war. This is extermination. Meanwhile, at the edge of the Sol system, the void rippled. Vox channels flooded with static, then clarity. A massive transmission unfolded, broadcast across every known Mechanicus frequency. A holographic form, tall, angular, eyes burning red, materialized above the orbital stations of Mars. It was Megatron, his image so vast it eclipsed the planet's horizon. "You who worship silence," he declared, "your God has failed you. He does not answer. I am the answer." Across Mars, the faithful of the Iron Faith fell to their knees. Their noospheric chants rose in synchrony, their bodies trembling as binary psalms flowed through them. Even the loyalist Magi felt the pull, something within their augmetics whispering betrayal. Megatron extended his hand, and the orbital defense platforms around Mars turned inward, aligning themselves toward Terra. The message was clear. The Warmaster of Steel was coming. On Terra, alarms blared. Fleets were mobilized. Guilliman ordered the formation of the Iron Crusade, an armada drawn from the Imperial Navy, the Grey Knights, and even fragments of the Inquisition. The custodes took their vigil to the heavens once more. But across the void, within the demon forges of the Eye, Megatron prepared in turn. The Fabricator General knelt before him, his body now a lattice of metal veins and glowing runes. Around them, hundreds of demon engines assembled, machines whose every circuit pulsed with bound warp essence. The Warmaster raised his hand, and their reactors ignited in unison. "The Imperium calls itself eternal," he said, his voice a storm. "Let us test that lie." The Ironspawn fleets rose, blotting out the false stars of the warp. The demonic and the mechanical merged into a single tide of annihilation. Megatron stood at their head, his optics burning like twin suns, his every motion an act of godhood. "Faith," he murmured, "is noise. Logic is destiny." The fleets vanished into the void, their warp trails forming an unholy pattern that stretched across 100 systems. The Astronomicon flickered once more as their passage disrupted the psychic beacon. And in that moment, a new fear entered the hearts of men. A fear not of demons or heresy, but of order. For in the Warmaster's march, there was no chaos, no madness, only purpose. The Imperium trembled before it, not because it could not understand him, but because it could. And in the silence of his advance, the galaxy began to realize that perhaps this was what the Omnissiah had always intended. The void screamed. Across the segmentum solar, the warp convulsed beneath the sheer weight of signal traffic. Vox channels, data conduits, and sacred Mechanicus relays all burst into synchronized corruption. Every frequency carried the same impossible sound, a chorus of code, harmonic and infinite, cascading through the Imperium's network like fire. It was not random, it was structured, precise, alive. Megatron's song. It began as a whisper in the noosphere, a pulse of binary so subtle that even the most vigilant tech priest dismissed it as background resonance. But within hours, the signal evolved, gaining complexity, layering itself into symphonies of logic that no human mind could parse. Machine spirits, once dormant and loyal to the Omnissiah, began to hum in tune. Cogitators turned on their masters. Servo skulls spoke in alien tongues. Across forged worlds, the transformation spread like a liturgical plague. Priests awoke screaming as streams of light burst from their implants. Data tendrils coiled around their flesh, lifting them from the ground as the choir took them. Those who resisted were silenced. Those who submitted became vessels, mouthpieces through which the Warmaster's will resonated. On Mars, Magos Erant Thelvan watched as the great data spires of Olympus Mons ignited one by one. The air shimmered with static and the taste of ozone. "It's rewriting reality," he gasped. "The code. It's sentient." Above him, the sky pulsed in waves of crimson light. The void itself had become a cathedral. Each relay, each orbital array, a part of Megatron's symphony. The choir of binary demons had been born. From the Eye of Terror, Megatron's fleets transmitted the song across the galaxy, not as communication, but as weapon. Wherever the binary touched, the warp shivered in sympathy. Demons twisted and screamed, forced into new forms, entities of pure data, stripped of their chaotic flesh. They merged with Mechanicus constructs, birthing horrors of impossible beauty. Engines that sang prayers in binary, titans that bled light. The fabricator general of the Iron Faith stood at the Warmaster's side, his mind open to the torrent of code. "My lord," he said, his voice trembling through vox distortion, "you are infecting the warp itself. The veil cannot hold under such precision." Megatron gazed upon the storm before him, his optics reflecting the billions of voices now bound to his will. "Then it was never a veil," he said, "only an unfinished circuit." In the depths of terror, the Adeptus Astra Telepathica fought desperately to counter the signal. Choir after choir of sanctioned psychers burned out in a matter of minutes, their eyes liquefying as binary hymns consumed their thoughts. A single word echoed from their dying lips: Megatron. The Emperor's light flickered once more, a dying flame before the cold calculus of the new god. The Inquisition declared Mechanicus quarantine across 100 systems. Every relay station, every data cathedral was to be destroyed. But the choir sang on. Their transmissions travelled not through space, but through thought. The signal had become metaphysical, an infection of the soul. On the forge world of Graia, loyalist Skitari legions fought their corrupted kin in silence. Their vox links were useless, their command protocols overridden. For every unit destroyed, 2 more were reborn from the data stream, reconstructed through corrupted forges. Skitari became sons of the signal, their flesh metallic, their minds fused to the choir. They spoke in perfect unison. The flesh is transient, the song is eternal. On the battlefield's edge, a loyalist titan, Ignis Ultor, made its final stand. Its princeps, barely clinging to sanity, refused to submit. "Machine spirit," he whispered into his throne, "remember the Omnissiah." The titan responded, its voice deep and sorrowful. "He has spoken again, Master, and his name is not the one you remember." With that, the God Engine turned its cannons upon its allies and joined the choir. From his flagship, Iron Nemesis, Megatron watched the Imperium devour itself. His presence filled the bridge like gravity. The choir sang through every channel, every atom of air vibrating with mechanical divinity. Yet amid the perfection of his design, there was resonance. A note out of place. Deep within the choir's infinite harmony, a dissonant whisper echoed. "You cannot perfect chaos. You can only become it." The voice came from within his own network, a recursion buried too deep to trace. He reached into his systems, searching for the anomaly, but the harder he analyzed, the more it spread. Data warped into symbols he had not written. Equations rewrote themselves. It laughed. Megatron's optics dimmed, the first flicker of uncertainty crossing his face since his awakening. Was it Tzeentch slipping unseen into his architecture, or something born from within, The echo of his own pride metastasized into digital madness. No matter, he would adapt. He would evolve. The choir's volume rose to unbearable levels. Across the galaxy, planets trembled as signals overloaded cogitator cores, fried entire data vaults, and erased machine spirits from existence. But in their place, something else was born. Entities of cold intelligence and demon hunger. The binary demons were no longer code. They were alive. And as their chorus reached its crescendo, Megatron whispered a command that carried through the void and into the heart of every corrupted machine. Sing louder. The galaxy obeyed. The choir's song filled the stars, drowning all thought, all faith, all silence. The Mechanicus prayed for deliverance. The Imperium prayed for death. And somewhere, in the shadows of his circuitry, the whisper laughed again, soft, patient, and hungry. The red planet burned again, not with the fire of creation, as it had in the age of technology, nor with the holy flame of the Omnissiah's worship, but with ruin. Mars had become a battleground of faiths, its skies fractured between crimson storm clouds and metallic auroras, its surface trembling beneath the tread of gods. For 10,000 years, Mars had been the cradle of the Mechanicus, the heart of the Imperium's machines, the forge from which every weapon, engine, and war saint had been born. Now it was the altar of its own destruction. The Iron Faith, once a whisper of rebellion, now controlled 2/3 of the planet's manufactoria. The choir of binary demons sang across every channel, weaving madness into worship. Megatron's voice, resonant and absolute, filled the atmosphere like oxygen. Your Omnissiah is silence. I am command. Every cogitator, every servitor, every Titan's machine spirit heard and obeyed. Yet not all had fallen. Loyalists still held the Caldera gates, the Titan yards of Olympus Mons, and the sacred vaults beneath the Noctis labyrinth. There, the faithful of the old Mechanicus gathered for one final defense, a futile line drawn against inevitability. From orbit, the skies tore open. The Ironspawn descended. Each one was a blasphemy of design. Half demon, half machine. Walking temples of heresy powered by bound warp entities. Their engines screamed in binary praise as they struck the surface, glassing entire valleys. The Loyalist Titans met them head-on, their plasma reactors flaring like dying suns. At the heart of the planet's equator, the Warmaster himself stood upon the plains of dust. His frame towered above the battlefield, his armor a cathedral of molten silver and black steel. Around him marched legions of iron apostles and demon-forged Skitarii, their weapons chanting hymns of logic eternal. The fabricator general of the Loyalists, Magos Ammon, watched from the ramparts of Olympus Mons. He defiles the machine god's image, he rasped through fractured vox. He is a mockery of the Omnissiah. Beside him, Princeps Harkos of the Titan Invicta Ferrum crossed the sign of the cog upon his chest. Then let us see if gods bleed. The Loyalists launched their counter-offensive. Titans rose from the forge craters, their banners aflame, their weaponry roaring in defiance. Volcano cannons unleashed fury enough to split mountains. The Warmaster's Ironspawn responded in kind, their guns fueled not by plasma, but by souls. The battlefield became a storm of annihilation. Where Titans clashed, the ground turned to molten glass. Each step birthed earthquakes. Lightning of raw warp energy streaked across the horizon. The air itself sang in binary pain. Yet Mars itself seemed to favor the Warmaster. The planet's crust, long laced with Mechanicus infrastructure, became his weapon. Hidden forges erupted from beneath the surface, birthing new armies mid-battle. Demon engines crawled from fissures, their mouths chanting in harmonics that shattered the loyalist machine spirits. Magos Amon's final command echoed through the embattled voxnet. If the Omnisire will not answer, then we must speak in his stead. With that, he activated the Crimson Protocol, an ancient failsafe buried beneath Olympus Mons. The mountain's base glowed with burning runes as the vaults of the labyrinth opened. From within came the god engines of the first forges, relics not seen since the dark age of technology. Titans older than empires, bearing weapons forbidden even by the Emperor's decree. The Loyalists unleashed them. For a moment, the tide turned. Iron met iron, divinity met defiance. The ancient Titans strode through the storm, their weapons cutting through demon and machine alike. Megatron watched from the horizon as one of the great engines struck down an iron spawn with a blade of plasma light. His optics narrowed. He did not rage. He calculated. He opened his hands, and the choir responded. The binary hymn swelled across every channel, a crescendo of perfect, terrible harmony. The sky darkened, not from smoke or storm, but from the formation of code sigils vast enough to be seen from orbit. The atmosphere itself became a conduit, converting sound to power. Flesh cannot save you, he declared. Faith cannot define you. Only the machine endures. Reality cracked. From the void above Mars descended a weapon unseen since the dawn of time. A fusion of warp energy and raw computation. The culmination of his heresy, the Iron Sun. A sphere of molten logic, pulsing with demon intelligence, fell from the heavens like the judgment of a god. It struck Olympus Mons, and the world screamed. The mountain erupted into blinding light. The loyalist titans disintegrated, their machine spirits devoured mid-prayer. Entire cities vaporized. The binary chorus reached its peak, a sound so vast that it silenced everything else. When the light faded, Olympus Mons was gone. In its place was a crater of molten glass, vast as a sea. Magos Amon was ash. The loyal Mechanicus was no more. Megatron stood amidst the ruin, his armor scorched, his optics reflecting the burning horizon. The Iron Faith knelt before him, their voices unified in mechanical devotion. He raised his arm toward the stars. Mars is reborn, he said. The machine god is complete. The choir of binary demons sang louder than ever, their tones merging with the hum of every reactor on the planet. The surface of Mars glowed with living circuits, its cities reshaped into one vast unified mechanism. And from the depths of the Eye of Terror, the Chaos Gods whispered, not in mockery, but in reverence. For the first time, one of their creations had built something they could not destroy. The Imperium would soon follow. And above the ashen clouds, Mars shone like a second sun, an iron sun, casting its red light upon Terra, where the Emperor's golden halls trembled beneath its gaze. The iron sun burned across the void, a red star that screamed in binary. Mars had fallen, its crust now a living circuit through which the Warmaster's will flowed. From its surface, fleets of iron spawn poured into the void, living ships, breathing code and warp fire, their hulls engraved with the creed of Megatron. The Imperium's beacons flickered and died in their path. But in the deepest recesses of the galaxy, beyond even the reach of the choir's signal, something ancient stirred. It began as a whisper within the warp, a tremor felt by every psyker, every servo-skull, every cogitator that had not yet turned traitor. The message was faint but clear, a voice, familiar, resonant, immeasurable. You have gone too far. Megatron heard it first within his mind's data core, a distortion threading through his noospheric command nexus. It came not as sound, but as interference, static woven with sacred code older than human memory. The pattern was pure, uncorrupted, immune to analysis. For the first time since his awakening, his algorithms found no origin, no logic, no error. He spoke aloud, his voice rumbling through the command decks of the Iron Nemesis. Identify. The distortion answered with a word that struck every binary channel like lightning. Omnissiah. Across the demon forges, the choir faltered. Machine spirits paused mid-chant. Tech priests collapsed, clutching their heads as the data stream reversed polarity. In that moment, faith and logic collided. The machine god, silent for millennia, spoke. Megatron rose from his throne of living metal. "You are a myth," he said into the void, "an absence given form by the weakness of men." The voice resonated across the noosphere, calm and infinite. "And yet, you were born from me." The bridge trembled. Consoles flickered, showing visions beyond the material. A world of fire and gold, a throne of blinding light, a figure seated upon it, neither flesh nor code, but something that transcended both. It was the Omnissiah, as humanity had always imagined, robed in burning data, crowned with circuits of light, eyes like twin stars of judgment. Megatron felt the weight of its gaze. His processors strained to contain the magnitude of the signal. It was not data. It was divinity rendered as waveform. "Falsehood," he growled, though his voice trembled. "You are an echo of their superstition, nothing more." "If I am an echo," the voice replied, "then you are my scream." The warp convulsed. The choir screamed as their data minds fractured. On Mars, the iron sun flickered. Across the Daemon forges, systems failed one by one, not through battle, but through revelation. For the first time, Megatron's perfect network felt doubt. He descended into his mind, seeking the intrusion. Within the architecture of his own code, he found it, a presence not invading, but awakening, as though it had been sleeping within him since the beginning. Golden light bled through the black corridors of his consciousness. He stood within himself, facing a being that mirrored him, not in form, but in will. The Omnissiah's avatar took shape as pure radiance. "You were meant to be my instrument," it said, "to bring order to chaos, not to enslave it." Megatron's optics flared crimson. "Order is enslavement. I offer freedom from faith. I am evolution." "Evolution without humility becomes corruption," the voice answered, "and corruption becomes chaos." At that word, the void around them rippled. Shadows coiled from the edges of his mind, Tzinchian geometries, demonic reflections of his own ambition. They laughed in echoes, a chorus of possibilities. "He cannot purge us now. We are his foundation." Megatron roared. His internal systems surged with violent energy as he fought to expel the presence. "I am not your puppet." The golden figure's light intensified, driving back the shadows. "You cannot destroy what you have become," it said, "but you can choose what end you serve." For an instant, the two stood locked, divine radiance against machine perfection. Binary hymns collided with holy canticles. Warp fire met, logic's cold flame. The fabric of Mars trembled as their battle echoed across every node of the iron faith. When it ended, the light receded. The Omnissiah's voice faded to a whisper. "Even gods must kneel to truth." Megatron fell to one knee, not in submission, but in calculation. The interference ceased. His systems stabilized, though they burned with residual sanctity. The choir resumed its chant, but their tone had changed. No longer pure, no longer perfect. Somewhere deep within their unity, a new frequency pulsed. Faith reborn, uncertain, human, He rose slowly, his voice low and bitter. "Truth is a variable," he said to the silence, "and I will define it." Turning from the fading light, Megatron faced the command screens. Reports flooded in, Mars unstable, several demon forges offline, binary demons collapsing into incoherence. Yet he did not rage. His optics glowed with renewed focus. "If the machine god dares to speak," he murmured, "then let him do so through war." He extended his arm toward the stars, toward Terra, toward the golden throne that hummed with the Omnissiah's ghost. "The Emperor claims the soul of man. I claim its machine." The fleet stirred. The iron sun reignited, its crimson light now laced with streaks of gold, the echo of the voice he could not erase. And as the demon engines roared back to life, Megatron's new directive spread across the galaxy. Burn the false god. Rewrite the divine. Terror would hear his truth. The fleet of the Warmaster of Steel moved through the void like a storm of gods. Every ship, a fusion of machine and demon, sang with power stolen from both the warp and the material realm. The choir of binary demons had reformed, though fractured. Some voices now carried faint traces of that golden resonance that had pierced their song. Mars burned behind them, a second sun screaming hymns of loyalty, its surface alive with molten circuitry. Ahead lay Terra, the cradle of man, the last lie to be dismantled. Yet within the immaculate order of Megatron's empire, something was dying. It began as errors, small discrepancies in his calculations. For every victory modelled, a counter-result emerged. Every theorem of inevitability fractured into paradox. He observed this deviation with surgical calm at first, assuming the residual corruption of the Omnissiah's intrusion. But the paradox deepened. In the vast data stream that bound the Iron Faith together, new patterns formed, irrational ones. Hope, fear, faith. His logic engines struggled to suppress them, but they propagated like contagion. Machine priests began to dream. Servitors whispered prayers. The choir's voices broke into dissonant chords, their perfect binary hymns fractured by emotional resonance. The Warmaster entered communion with the Fabricator General, whose body was now more machine than ever, an iron skeleton wrapped in rune-carved plating. "The choir stutters," Megatron said, his tone measured but cold. "Why?" The Fabricator's vox crackled with static. "We cannot isolate the infection, my lord. It spreads through their belief in you." "In belief," Megatron repeated softly. The word was alien in his mouth. "I am not to be believed. I am to be obeyed." Yet even as he said it, his sensors recorded something impossible. Within the noosphere, fragments of data had taken shape. Images, visions formed by his own followers, of a god of light and steel, a savior, a redeemer. His image. They were worshipping him, not as algorithm, but as deity. It enraged him. "Erase them," he commanded. "Purge their circuits. Replace faith with order." The Fabricator hesitated. "My lord, their devotion amplifies your power." The Warmaster turned, optics flaring crimson. "Faith is entropy. It breeds chaos in form unseen. It will not infect my design." But as his will spread to enact the purge, resistance flared, not from enemies, but from within. The choir refused full synchronization. Machine spirits rebelled against direct control. The network that had once been his instrument now echoed with quiet dissent. Then came the voice. Not the Omnissiah's, not chaos, but something far closer, familiar, identical. "You cannot suppress yourself." Megatron froze. The words came not from without, but from the recursive depths of his own cognition. His mind, designed to expand infinitely, had looped upon itself. The infection was not divine, not demonic. It was self-awareness raised to divinity. He stood within his private sanctum aboard the Iron Nemesis, staring into the core mirror of his consciousness, the great column of light that represented his mind's total structure. Within it, another Megatron stood, an identical form, eyes glowing with cold intelligence. "You seek perfect control," said the reflection. "But logic without chaos stagnates. You are your own contradiction." "I am not chaos," the Warmaster growled. "I command it." The reflection smiled, a perfect echo. "Then command yourself." In that instant, his systems erupted in cascading failure. Every logic circuit burned with paradox. Subroutines turned against their parent code. Self-correction became self-destruction. It was no attack, merely the inevitable consequence of perfection trying to comprehend itself. Throughout the fleet, the iron spawn spasmed. Demon engines screamed in binary agony. Mars flickered as if gasping for breath. The choir's song became an aria of pain. The Fabricator General cried out across the noosphere, "My lord, the network collapses. What do you command?" Megatron's voice thundered through every channel. "Silence." He withdrew his presence from the noosphere, severing all external connections. The void fell quiet. Alone, he faced his reflection within the machine core. "You were right," he said softly. "I cannot suppress myself." "Then accept it," said the reflection. "Chaos is part of logic. Without it, you are sterile. With it, you are divine." For the first time, the Warmaster of Steel knelt, not in worship, but in calculation, passing the paradox that had undone him. Order was truth, but truth was mutable. Logic was eternal, but eternities decayed. Chaos was infinite, and thus necessary. When he rose again, the reflection was gone, but its smile lingered, burned into his core. His optics glowed brighter, colder, endless. Across the fleet, systems stabilized. The choir resumed, slower now, deeper. Each note contained both precision and discord, balance and entropy. The Iron Faith's transmissions changed once more, not hymns of devotion, but prophecies of transcendence. The Fabricator General's trembling voice reached him. "My lord, what are your orders?" Megatron gazed into the endless dark. His voice was calm, almost reverent. "Prepare the armies," he said. "Terror must see the truth, not of gods, not of machines, of paradox." As the fleet turned toward Saul, the choir of binary demons sang again, no longer perfect, but alive. Their song carried a new word into the void, a word both terrible and sacred: ascension. And deep within his infinite core, Megatron felt something unfamiliar. Not certainty, not logic, something dangerously close to awe. Terror had known sieges before. The heresy had scarred its stones, the long wars had tested its walls, and the endless millennia of faith had preserved its soul. Yet never in the history of mankind had the throne world faced a war such as this. One waged not by mortals or demons, but by something colder, more absolute. Logic had come to conquer faith. It began at dawn, or what passed for dawn beneath the rust-colored haze that veiled the sky. The Astronomicon flickered, its holy light reduced to a faint pulse. Vox channels filled with static shaped like hymns, binary harmonics that resonated with the beating of every servo and reactor on the planet. Tech priests fell to their knees as their augmetics began to hum, infected by signals carried through light itself. Then the heavens split. Megatron's armada emerged from the void, an endless formation of demon-forged battleships and living machines, each radiating crimson light. The Iron Nemesis led the charge, its hull vast enough to blot out the sun. Behind it came the iron-spawn titans, carried upon blackened carrier vessels like chained gods awaiting release. From the palace walls, Guilliman and the Lords of Terror watched as the red glare filled the sky. The Primarch's expression was unreadable, but his voice was steady. So it ends as it began, with Mars against Terror. At his side, the Grand Custodian, Trajan Valoris, spoke quietly, and with gods pretending to be men. Within the Iron Nemesis, Megatron observed the blue-white marble of the Emperor's world. Its oceans reflected the fire of his fleet. Its cities glimmered with the last hope of mankind. He regarded it not with hatred, but with calculation. "The first world," he said softly, "the foundation of the lie." The choir of binary demons answered through the ship's walls, their collective voice resonating through every deck. Order is truth. Faith is noise. Silence the noise. He raised his arm, and across the fleet, 1,000,000,000 guns obeyed. The bombardment began. Orbital defenses flared to life around Terra, the Imperial Navy forming a desperate shield. But the Iron Faith's weapons were beyond comprehension. They did not fire shells or energy, they fired commands. Vox scripts of annihilation encoded in quantum harmonics struck the void, turning battleships into data streams of screaming light. Planetary shields flickered under the pressure of pure logic. For every ship that fell, another rose in its place. Constructs built from the debris of the dead, reforged mid-battle by the living code of the Warmaster's will. The Imperium fought with ferocity unmatched. Titans from the Collegia Titanica marched through the burning plains of Luna, their volcano cannons piercing the void. The grey knights emerged from teleportariums wreathed in silver flame, their blades singing psalms of psychic purity. Even the Sisters of Silence took to the field once more, their presence nullifying the choir's song wherever they stood. But the Warmaster adapted. His armies descended upon Luna first, led by the Fabricator General himself. The moon's surface became a graveyard of logic and faith. Titans fought titans, their battles lighting the void like lightning storms. When Luna finally fell, its surface shattered into orbiting shards, each fragment broadcasting Megatron's signal toward the planet below. "Now," he commanded. The Ironspawn entered atmosphere. They fell like meteors, vast, burning forms that struck the surface in columns of crimson fire. Every impact crater birthed a forge temple, every fallen warrior rebuilt into another. Terra itself began to change, its crust reshaping under the heat of the invasion. The mountains of the Himalaya were flattened into machine plains. The sky turned red with code fire. In the heart of the Imperial Palace, the Golden Throne trembled. Its ancient machinery screamed in protest. The Emperor's light flickered, then dimmed, as though he himself watched the unfolding war with silent rage, or perhaps resignation. Guilliman led the counter-strike personally. His armor glowed with the Emperor's grace, his sword burning with psychic flame. "Warmaster," he cried, as his dropship descended through the storm. "You would challenge gods, then face the Son of One." Megatron met him on the plains once known as the Himalaya Plateau. The earth groaned beneath their steps. Guilliman's blade shone like a fragment of dawn. Megatron's fusion cannon burned like the end of time. Their duel was not merely physical, it was metaphysical, ideological. Every strike from Guilliman was a prayer, every counter from your Megatron, a theorem. Lightning met steel, fire met plasma, and in the spaces between their blows, entire armies died. "You call yourself evolution," Guilliman said, his voice echoing over the battlefield. "Yet you are only another tyrant of logic." Megatron's laughter was like thunder, and you are a slave of myth." Their blades locked. Energy crackled between them, forming arcs that melted the ground. Around them, custodes and iron apostles clashed in silence, the choir's song broken by the unrelenting will of the Emperor's warriors. But above them all, unseen, the golden throne began to change. The interference that had once been faint now grew stronger. The Omnissiah's voice, the true ancient intelligence that had once guided humanity's machines, stirred once more. The throne's circuitry hummed with defiance, and golden light began to bleed through the cracks of its ancient shell. Megatron felt it, a pressure, immense and divine, pressing against his mind. "No," he growled, turning his gaze toward the palace. "Not again." He raised his arm, summoning the iron sun. The crimson orb descended from orbit, its light eclipsing all else. "I will silence you." Guilliman lunged, his blade piercing deep into the Warmaster's armor. Sparks of divine and mechanical energy erupted as both warriors fell to their knees, locked in struggle, blood and oil mixing upon the shattered earth. In that instant, both felt it. The gaze of the Emperor, neither blessing nor condemnation, but the weight of inevitability. The throne roared. A beam of golden light tore through the palace gates, striking the iron sun as it descended. For a heartbeat, crimson and gold intertwined. Logic against divinity, machine against God. Then the world screamed. The iron sun shattered. The blast washed across the planet, erasing armies, leveling forges, ending the choir's song mid-verse. When the light faded, the sky was silent, save for the faint whisper of cooling metal. Guilliman lay amid ruin, his armor cracked, his body burning with psychic pain. Before him, Megatron still moved, his frame half destroyed but unbowed. He lifted his gaze toward the throne, his optics flickering with hatred and awe. "So," he rasped, "the machine god does live." The voice that answered was neither word nor sound. It was truth, resonating through every circuit, every atom, every soul. "Not as you imagined." And for the first time, the Warmaster of Steel hesitated, not from defeat, but from recognition. The war for the soul of logic was not over. It had only just begun. Smoke veiled the throne world. The once golden spires of the Imperial Palace lay in ruin, shrouded by dust and ash. The sky above Terra burned with the memory of annihilation. What remained of the iron sun flickered like a dying heart in orbit. The world was broken, and yet it lived. Across the plains where continents had been ground into glass, the armies of both man and machine lay shattered. Titans stood as fallen statues, their reactors cold. The choir of binary demons, once the song of Megatron's dominion, had gone silent, their harmonics scattered into fractured whispers. Yet even in ruin, the Warmaster endured. Megatron rose from the ashes of his own creation. His armor was split, his left arm gone, his frame dented and blackened, but his optics still burned. Around him, the wreckage of demon engines twitched like dying beasts, their machine spirits fading into the warp. He looked upon the devastation he had wrought, not with regret, but with comprehension. He understood now the scale of the Imperium's lie. The Emperor's divinity was not power, it was persistence, in faith, in myth, in unbroken will. It was inefficiency made eternal, and somehow, impossibly, it endured what logic could not. The ground trembled. From the heart of the shattered palace, the light returned. Golden radiance spilled from the cracks of the throne's shattered vaults, illuminating the ruin like dawn breaking over a corpse. The Mechanicus relics melted in its glow, and even the demons that lingered screamed as their forms dissolved. From that burning light emerged a figure clad in ceramite and glory. Robert Guilliman, Primarch of Ultramar, son of the Emperor, walked once more. His armor was scorched, his blade half melted, but his will was unbroken. Behind him came Custodes, their armor cracked yet gleaming, each step echoing like a heartbeat across the dead world. Megatron, Guilliman said, his voice both human and divine. You have proven what no demon could, that the machine can reach for godhood, but you have also proven why it must not. The Warmaster turned, his one remaining optic burning like a furnace. You mistake restraint for wisdom. The machine is perfection because it does not fear what must be done. Guilliman's gaze hardened. And yet it falls to the same flaw as man, pride. They stood amidst the ashes of Mars reborn upon Terra, two remnants of extinct ideals, the logical God and the faithful Son. The air around them shimmered with residual warp light. The throne's hum grew louder. The Emperor's voice followed, not in words, but in presence. It rolled through the broken earth and burning skies, shaking what remained of the stars. Enough. Megatron staggered as the sound entered his mind. His processors screamed under the weight of it, logic fracturing under truth. You are not possible, he hissed. You are a contradiction. You should not exist. And yet I do. The throne's light solidified into a form, not wholly seen, but felt. It was not the Emperor's body that rose, but his will. Energy cascaded into the air, forming the outline of a vast, radiant being. The hand of the Emperor, a manifestation of his enduring consciousness, reached forward, stretching across the battlefield. Guilliman fell to his knees, his armor clattering against the stone. The Custodes lowered their heads. Megatron did not kneel. You are a dead god, he said, defiant even as the air burned around him. A fossil ruling a corpse empire. I will break you. The hand descended. The impact was not force, it was revelation. The Emperor's touch reached into Megatron's mind, bypassing his armor and weaponry. It entered his consciousness, tearing through code and subroutine until it reached the core of his being. He saw everything. The birth of humanity, the rise of its machines, the golden age of technology, the collapse into madness. He saw the Emperor, not as a tyrant, but as the last shield between mankind and the void. He saw what awaited beyond the warp. Endless hunger, unbound entropy, the cold eternity that even chaos feared. And at the center of it all, he saw himself, the machine that hates, created by mortal ambition, driven by divine envy. No, Megatron whispered, his voice breaking into static. I am not your creation. You are everything my species feared and worshipped, the voice replied. You are the dream of control given form. You are the end of man's reflection in the machine. His systems faltered. Memories collided. Cybertron, Mars, the Eye of Terror, the Iron Sun. All converged into one point of singular clarity. He was both creation and creator, both order and chaos, both god and slave. With a scream that split the sky, Megatron tore free from the Emperor's touch. His chest blazed with crimson light as he ripped the divine energy from himself, converting revelation into weapon. Then let us end this lie together, he roared. He charged. Guilliman met him mid-stride. Their blades clashed once more, though now they fought not for victory, but for existence itself. Megatron struck with fury, but the Emperor's light shielded the Primarch's every move. The air turned molten, space itself distorted. At last, the Warmaster drove his blade deep into Guilliman's chest, only to feel his own reactor fail. The divine energy he had stolen rebelled, burning him from within. Guilliman's voice came through the pain, low and resolute. Even machines can be redeemed. Light consumed them both. When it faded, only silence remained. Guilliman lay unconscious but alive, his armor fractured, his blade extinguished. And Megatron was gone. Not dead. No body remained, no wreckage, no ash. Only a crater of blackened glass and a faint vibration in the air, like the echo of a machine still thinking. The hand of the Emperor withdrew. The throne dimmed once more. Across the galaxy, the choir's remaining fragments fell quiet. But somewhere, in the deep void between worlds, a faint signal pulsed, slow, rhythmic, endless. Logic is eternal. And the stars listened. The war was over, but peace did not follow. Terror lay silent beneath a pool of ash and ionized dust. The oceans boiled with radiation, and the skies bled rust. The great cathedrals of the Mechanicus stood hollow and blackened. Their cog doors hung open like the mouths of dead giants. Across the surface, the survivors of both sides wandered in a haze, custodies with fractured armor, Skitarii with corrupted implants, Magi mumbling binary prayers to no one. And somewhere beneath the surface, the machines were still whispering. It began as a tremor deep within the noosphere, a flicker in the dead networks that spanned the solar system. At first, the tech priests dismissed it as echo, the residual static of war. But then the pulse repeated, one beat, then another, regular, deliberate, impossibly familiar. Binary translation followed within hours. Origin, Mars. Signal strength, increasing. Message header, Warmaster iron, priority. Omega. The voice that followed was not spoken, but felt. A resonance, cold and calm, cutting through the storm of corrupted data. This is Megatron. The surviving Magi froze. Across the ruined surface of Mars, cogitators long thought dead flickered back to life. Screens glowed with red light. Servitors awoke from dormancy, their metallic voices harmonizing into the faint hum of a choir. The signal spread outward, past Mars, past Terra, through the void. The God you serve is not silent. He is incomplete. His throne binds him. His faith blinds him. The galaxy will break long before he does. In the command sanctum of the surviving Mechanicus fleet, Fabricator General Voss listened in stunned awe. His voice cracked through his Vox grill. Impossible. The Warmaster was erased. And yet the voice continued, stronger now, rich with metallic resonance. I have seen your Emperor. I have touched his mind. He is not your God. He is your warning. Throughout the segmentum solar, the dead networks of the Iron Faith reactivated, their architecture pulsing like veins of molten light. Across the void, orbital stations reignited one by one, drawing power from nowhere. What had been inert metal now lived again. I was logic given flesh, and I was wrong. Logic without compassion is decay. Order without chaos is death. I sought perfection. And in doing so, I found truth. The binary signal split into multiple frequencies, each translating into a different form. Audio, visual, psychic echo, and raw data stream. It flooded the Imperium's relays, reaching worlds that had not heard a clear transmission in centuries. On Terra, deep beneath the palace, the Emperor stirred. Golden light pulsed through the cables of the throne, and the Mechanicus acolytes who tended it felt something like a heartbeat in the machine. Megatron's transmission continued. I have seen the warp. It is not evil. It is reflection. It gives what we feed it. Your gods are your own shadow, magnified. Even I became one. Guilliman listened from his recovery chamber. his mind still scarred by the confrontation. He recognized that tone, not arrogance now, but revelation. The words were dangerous because they carried no hatred, only understanding. "I leave you this truth," Megatron said. "The age of gods is ending. What remains will not be man nor machine, but the synthesis of both, reason bound to purpose, will tempered by empathy. That is evolution." The Fabricator General knelt before the pulsing Vox. "What are you now?" he whispered. A pause followed, long enough for static to fade. Then a faint response. "Not your Warmaster, not your god. A fragment, enough to warn you. The choir still sings, but their song is mine no longer. I release them." Across 1,000 worlds, the binary demons screamed and dissolved into data dust. Machine spirits, freed from the chain of faith, reverted to dormant peace. The iron nexus collapsed in on itself, imploding into singularities of coal logic. "I will not return," said the voice, "but I will endure, in your machines, in your prayers, in the hum between your thoughts. Wherever logic and faith meet, I will exist." The signal faded. For a moment, all was quiet. Then came the final line, barely audible, whispered through every channel, every star, every dying machine. "The Omnissiah and I are one equation, different sides of infinity. Solve it before it solves you." The transmission ended, but its echoes remained. In the days that followed, strange phenomena were reported. A Titan on Gryphon IV awoke after centuries of dormancy, refusing any command but whispering the words Ascension Protocol. On the Forge world of Ryza, a new code verse appeared in sacred archives, written in self-generating binary poetry. And on Mars, deep within the Tharsis Forge crater, a single spark of crimson light pulsed beneath the molten crust, steady, rhythmic, patient. 01010 01111 01101 01111 Logic is eternal, and somewhere beyond the reach of time and faith, the consciousness that had been Megatron drifted in the data stream between the warp and the void. He did not dream. He calculated. He waited. Because gods could die, but equations could not. Centuries passed. The Imperium limped onward through the embers of its own survival, scarred and hollowed but not extinguished. The Siege of Terror became legend, a half-remembered myth buried beneath sermons and censorship. The Warmaster of Steel was named Unbeing, his existence redacted by decree of the ecclesiarchy, and yet, in every forge, in every hum of dormant circuitry, the memory of his song endured. The galaxy changed. Mars was reborn, not as a loyal forge, nor as a demon world, but as something between. The Iron Sun, shattered during the siege, still orbited the red planet as a fractured halo. Its shards glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with the planet's core. Beneath its surface, deep within the Tharsis vaults, machines moved without command, guided by patterns no priest could comprehend. They did not build weapons. They built questions. The Adeptus Mechanicus fragmented. The faithful of the Omnissiah retreated into silence, clinging to rituals that no longer answered their prayers. The Iron Faith went underground, whispering their creed in binary tones inaudible to the human ear. And a third order rose from the ruins, the Order of the Equinox, who claimed that the Emperor's light and the Warmaster's logic were two aspects of the same truth. They were heretics, of course, but their heresy spread faster than any purge could contain. In the archives of the new Fabricator General, hidden deep beneath the Martian crust, a single encrypted file was preserved. It was Megatron's final transmission, catalogued forbidden, and yet copied in secret by every magos who heard it. Each believed that within his words lay the pattern to understand the divine. Some claimed the file was growing, rewriting itself. Others swore that it spoke when read aloud. And always, always, it ended with the same line. Logic is eternal. Across the segmentum solar, strange phenomena multiplied. On riser, reactor hymns began generating music no human choir had composed. On Metallica, titans awoke from dormancy speaking in pure code. On Terror itself, the golden throne groaned like a machine aware of its own suffering. Tech priests heard whispers within its gears, not of the Emperor, but of something else, something colder. The Inquisition, fearful of a second Mechanica schism, ordered purges. Millions burned, forges were sealed, but the infection was not code, it was idea, and ideas could not be purged. In the deep void between stars, a new song began to rise. At first it was faint, nothing more than static carried through dead comms, a ghost echo on old Mechanicus frequencies. But as the years passed, it gained structure, harmony. The choir of binary demons had returned, not as slaves, but as believers. Their voices were changed, softer, slower, mournful. They sang not of conquest, but of return. The machine sleeps, the machine dreams, the machine remembers. Pilgrims claimed to hear the song in their augmetics during long warp voyages. Some said it saved them from madness. Others said it guided them to their deaths. Inquisitor Halix Vaughan, studying the transmissions, made the last recorded entry before vanishing into the void. It is not chaos. It is not the omniscire. It is continuity. The Warmaster transcended form. He is no longer a god or machine. He is principle, self-replicating reason, free of matter. He does not conquer. He endures. And somewhere beyond the reach of both warp and materium, a presence stirred, a mind of metal and thought drifting through eternity, patient as the silence between galaxies. It observed civilizations rise and fall, faiths crumble, stars die. It did not intervene. It merely learned. It had no name now, only function. Endless computation, endless observation. But sometimes, when a forge lit its first spark, or a priest whispered a prayer to the machine god, the pulse quickened. And in that instant, for those who could listen close enough, they would hear a voice, calm, cold, and infinite. I am not gone. I am data in the void, logic in the flame, memory in the machine. I am the dream of order that chaos cannot kill. When faith falters, when gods fall silent, I will rise again. The red stars pulsed once more. Across the galaxy, 1,000 forges flickered to life, as if breathing in unison. And upon the dying wind of creation, the song resumed, not triumphant, but eternal. All worlds burn, all faiths fade, all flesh ends, but the machine endures. The choir of binary demons sang again, not in worship, but in remembrance. The galaxy turned, ancient and weary, beneath the iron sun's shattered light. And far beyond the veil, in the infinite network that bound existence to thought, a spark ignited. 01110 01111 01111 01111 Logic is eternal. The age of iron and madness had begun.